Hey guys, and welcome to my Aatrox guide to the top lane. My name is LolFit. I create educational content, and I mostly focus on mid, top, and support. I've broken this guide down into 4 different sections, all with timestamps down below. So if you just want to skip around to the different sections, I heavily encourage that, especially if you already have a decent understanding of his kit. The 4 sections are, first up, we're going to go over his kit, then we're going to go over 2 viable builds I think anyone can just take into ranked and have a decent time with. Then I'm going to go over a couple items that I think are fairly effective on him, and then last up, my favorite, I'm going to talk about how to approach the different archetypes in your matchups. In the top lane, we're going to go over the juggernauts, fighters, tanks, and poke harass. As always with all my videos, all feedback and critique is welcome. I respond to all the comments on my videos. And a little bit of a disclaimer for this video, it is a new champion. A lot of this footage is just me learning the kit, and it is also on Twisted Treeline because you are able to play Aatrox every single game if you are quick at hovering, and it's just never banned because you just play blind draft. And I find this is the best way to get a lot of experience on Aatrox and a lot of time in, because people are constantly banning out Aatrox, or if you're going to that summon a Rift 5-man normal draft or blind pick, everyone's trying to lock that in. You have less competition in the Twisted Treeline. And as always with my viewers and subscribers, if you would like me to give you a OPGG review, I am always open to that. Just link it down below and I can give you some tips and tricks. I do only have Diamond 4 experience, so it's not going to be the highest level of analysis, but I can definitely help you get out of those lower elos like bronze, silver, and gold. So hit me up and let's just jump right into the guide. Alright, let's get right into Aatrox's abilities. First up, his passive Deathbringer stance. Initiate. Aatrox next basic attack gains 50 bonus range and from 8 to 16% of the target's maximum health as bonus physical damage, capped at 400 against monsters. Enemy champions are mutilated for 3 seconds, reducing all healing and shielding on them for 40%. Deathbringer stance cooldown reduction is reduced by 2 seconds when Aatrox casts an ability or hits a champion with the edge of the darkened blade. This is a great ability for early game trades. This gives you a lot of power at level 1. This gives you decent continuous damage throughout your fight outside of your cooldowns if you're hitting everything, and can be very effective into matchups with a good amount of healing. Alright, and let's jump right into Darkened Blade, his Q. Aatrox swings his greatsword in his target direction, strikes enemy in a line. The Darkened Blade can be reactivated twice within 4 seconds, with the second cast refreshing the timer, the second cast enemy in a cone, and the third in the target area. Each cast deals physical damage, increasing by 25% on the second cast and 50% on the third. The Darkened Blade deals 65 to 100% based on level damage to minions. Hitting an enemy at the end of the target in the first 2 casts at the center of the third deals 50% damage and knocks the target up for 0.25 seconds. Monsters take 10% AD bonus damage and are knocked up for 0.5 seconds instead. Now, this is a great ability for trades. This again gives you a lot of power at level 1 and also allows you to do very good combos. Now, this does kind of have a little bit of a skill requirement to it, as it is similar to Darius's Q, where you have to hit him with the edge to get the maximum effect out of the ability. You still are doing a little bit of damage, but you do get a huge spike in damage if you're able to get them in that the edge of the blade, especially on that third attack. Alright, and next up, Infernal Chains. Active. Aatrox smashes the ground in the target direction, creating a chain that stops on the first enemy hit, dealing physical damage, double against minions, and slowing them for 1.5 seconds. If Infernal Chains hits a champion or large monster, they are chained to the impact area. If the chained enemy is still in the impact area after 1.5 seconds, they are dragged to the center and take the same damage again. Now, this is amazing for Aatrox kit because it gives you a guaranteed location for your enemy after you get your W procced on them. This is perfectly set up after you have done your Q twice. You want to throw your third Q when that Infernal Chains is about to proc and guarantee that crit on your third attack. That is the most effective way to throw out that W. Next up, Umbral Dash, his E. Passive. Aatrox heals for a percentage of the pre-mitigation physical damage he deals with a 33% effectiveness against non-champions. Additionally, Aatrox periodically stores an Umbral Dash charge up to 2 stored at once. Active. Aatrox dashes in the target direction, gaining bonus attack damage for 1.5 seconds. Umbral Dash can be cast during his other spell cast without interrupting him. Now, this should always be used when you are getting in position for your Qs, because it's going to give you that bit of attack damage when you're doing your ability, and when you want to go in with your combo. You should always save one for the third to just give you a little bit more attack damage, because at max rank it actually gives you 55 bonus attack damage, so this will add quite a bit of burst to your damage setup. Alright, and last up, his most fun ability, the most iconic ability right now on Aatrox, World Ender. Active. After a small delay, Aatrox unleashes his demonic form for 12 seconds, fearing nearby allied and enemy minions for 3 seconds, and for the first seconds gaining bonus movement speed. While transformed, Aatrox gains increased size and 20% bonus attack damage, refreshing the bonus movement speed when out of combat with champions and turrets. Aatrox generates a blood well equal to 15 to 50% based on duration of his maximum health. Over the first 10 seconds, taking lethal damage during World Ender revives Aatrox over 3.25 seconds, during which he is untargetable, pacified, and slowed by 25%, and consumes the blood well to recover the same amount of health. This is going to give you a lot of power for your trades, and gives you just more damage on your trade. It is equivalent to Riven's R, except you don't have the active on use. Instead, you get a revive. And that will wrap up Aatrox's kit. Alright, and jumping into Aatrox's build. First up, the best build to go into when you are facing a lot of tanks. This is the Conqueror setup, and it will give you a good amount of shred with the true damage, and since you have so many AD scalings, this can be particularly effective. Also, Triumph is a great ability for Aatrox, because he does have a large amount of sustain with his E passive, and it is just very helpful after you are able to burst out an enemy champion to get a little bit more healing. Next up, you want to be taking the attack speed in the Legend robe, because it works very well with your kit, because you're going to be having a lot of AD and very minimal attack speed items on your build, so this will scale very well with your setup. And then last up, you can take a couple different things. You can take Coup de Grace if you want to burst people out, and also Last Stand can be effective, especially if you're running items like Sterix that can keep you at a low health percentage for a long time, and also this will be causing you to deal a massive amount of damage when you're around your ult proc. Next up, in that secondary row, just to give you a bit more tankiness, I definitely recommend that Bone Plating to reduce all-in trades, and Chrysalis just to give you that bit more health in the early game to kind of survive a little bit of lane harass. If you're against a ranged champion, I really don't recommend Bone Plating. You can go for something like Revitalize to get a little bit more healing, just because they're going to poke it off with an auto attack and then go in and do their combo afterwards. Alright, and second build that I am going to recommend is a lot safer of a build that I've been seeing used by a couple of pros. The Grasp Bruiser. It is a very strong for trading into tanks and for melee matchups, and you're going to get a lot of HP out of that, giving you a little bit more of a tankiness setup. And you want to be taking Chrysalis of Bone Plating, and again, if you're against a ranged matchup, probably Bone Plating isn't the best, and then Revitalize is great for your builds into Sustain. Also, Taste of Blood is a great pickup. You can also go Sudden Impact for a bit more damage if you want to play a more offensive playstyle, giving you that lethality whenever you press your E. And then also Ravenous Hunter is great because it's going to give you a bit of healing on all of your abilities doing their damage. Now, there are a couple other setups. You can run Electrocute to give you a little bit more burst and a little bit more damage if you're comfortable in the lane matchup and think you can snowball on them. That is a great choice. And also, if they have a team setup that is very mobile and is going to be running from you at all points, there are some pros using the Phase Rush that is a particularly effective build in chasing people down, so that is also a viable build. I just recommend these two builds to kind of get you in the game, as they are very simple to execute, and you don't have to be worrying about those procs and using them at the at a particular time. And that will wrap up his rune builds. Alright, let's jump into some viable items for Aatrox. Now, he is extremely flexible with what he can do right now. There are even people building things like Knight's Vow right now on pro builds. But here is what I recommend for someone just kind of jumping into the game and want to try something out. As he is similar to Riven and very cooldown reliant, you definitely want to go towards one of these 20% CDR items. Now, Black Cleaver, in my opinion, is quite superior to Triforce unless you are just killing your lane opponent. You're snowballing, you're feeling good, you want to do a lot of damage. Triforce can be an option, but I think Black Cleaver is just a great item on what he is trying to do right now. A couple of dueling items that work pretty well on him as well is you can get another res with Guardian Angel and just completely trigger people on the enemy team, and also it will dissuade a lot of people from focusing you as they know you have the 2 revives. They don't want to be throwing too much burst into you. And another great dueling item if you're against an AP heavy team can be Maw Mortius. It will give you that big burst when you're at a lower percentage health with that shield, and it also gives CDR, which is great. Now, 2 items that I think are very effective on Aatrox right now are the counter burst items. First up, Death's Dance gives you a large amount of AD, which works well with your AD scaling out of your skills, and also CDR and that healing and the stagger debuff of damage can really help you heal a lot of burst if they don't have a lot of continual damage. Now, these items aren't going to be the best against teams that just have a lot of auto attackers, and they're not really just trying to burst you with one big ability like a Fizz or a Zed ult. And next up, Sterix can be extremely effective with Aatrox because it is exactly what he wants. It's a little bit of damage, it's a little bit of tankiness, it's a bit of a shield that you can be sustaining in when you are proccing it, and also some tanky CDR items that I've seen being built by some of the pros. Spirit Visage also synergizes really well with the Ravenous Hunter, Taster Blood, and any lifesteal items you build like Death's Dance, and also your E passive, which is really important, and it gives CDR and magic resist. So it is a perfect item. It just needs to find the right game state. And also, if with this early game meta, Warmogs can be a great pickup, especially if they have a lot of poke. You don't really have to worry about too much resistances if you're seeing games that end very quickly. That large amount of health can really help you just tank out a bit of their damage. And I am under the impression right now with boot choices, unless you are 7-0, 8-0, you should always be going defensive boot item setups just because you are a bruiser and you don't want to be going something like Berserker Greaves. And that will wrap up the viable items, in my opinion, for Aatrox. Please let me know if you guys are finding a lot of success with a different item. And just comment down below, and I'd love to see what you guys have to say. Alright, and let's jump right into some of the matchups you're going to be seeing on Aatrox. First up, surprisingly, one of my favorite matchups right now is a juggernaut by the name of Darius. Your E is so effective in what he is trying to do. You're able to dodge out of his improved Q on the outer ring and jump in towards him, reducing his damage and his effectiveness on getting stacks. What you want to do against juggernauts is really try and use your superior continuous damage that you have with your low cooldown Q damage and your passive giving you a bit of current percent or maximum health percentage damage can be very effective against juggernauts. And also they usually have one large burst spell which is countered by your ult because you're able to get up after it. So these are generally good matchups for Aatrox, and I recommend you guys trying them in the early game. And also you're able to harass them with your Q from range as well, and also get a bit of more heal sustain from landing those abilities. Alright, next up, the ranged harassers, things like Quinn, things like Teemo, things like Kennen, things like Gnar. They can be a little bit more difficult, but if you can bait out their mobility spells and then land a W on them, they are very easy to do damage to and beat in a fight. You just need to be extremely careful on how you manage waves. The last thing you want to do is being last hitting under the turret with them just constantly auto attacking you out of lane and poking you out. Just make sure you're keeping up constant wave pressure, and anytime they're going to be looking to auto attack you, you're going to have minions attacking them back and looking for possible all-ins with your W. Next up, tanks. Things like Ornn, things like Malphite, things like, I don't know, Maokai. They are going to have high base damages that you're not going to be able to really sustain through. Now, they're going to be wanting to take pretty short fights against you, short trades, and you're going to be wanting to look for a little bit of a longer trades, as you do have a little bit more continuous damage as them. So if they're using a lot of abilities on minions, take advantage of that fact and jump on them with all of your abilities. This is also a great time to be, if you're ever going against a tank, just please build Black Cleaver. Don't be looking into anything stupid like Triforce. Next up, these are the true skill matchups, in my opinion, is when you're going against fighters. This is when you need to be very cognizant of when you're using your Qs for knockups, which are very effective in counter fighters, being your CC, and then also waiting to use your W after they use their mobility. And they usually have a large burst spell like Aurelia's ult, and that's when you want to counter with your ult, or popping your ult at the start to just if you think you can burst them out on a early game trade. And that will wrap up the matchups. Please let me know if you found something that Aatrox just completely smashes or gets dumpstered by. I'd love to hear your guys' thought on those matchups. Alright, and that will wrap up my guide for Aatrox up in the top lane. Please let me know if you guys have any criticism or feedback. I'm super open to that kind of stuff, and comment down below if you have any questions. I respond to every single one of my comments on my videos, and if you enjoyed the content, please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, guys, take it easy.